Good morning, everybody. This is day 8 of my tournament in Mallorca, Spain, and today I feel like an early bird. Not because I've actually woken up early, because I literally woke up at 10:24 a.m. The breakfast closes at 10:30. I ran, had some breakfast, had some churros, and then I came back to the room and was so tired and took a nap. And now I've been roaming around a little bit, and now I'm here. It's right now 12 p.m. and the round is starting at 3:30 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. today, so we have an early round happening, and that's why, I feel a little bit like an early bird. So I'm excited to play in a few hours, and I'll go ahead and see you all by the room when I start preparing. It's right now like 28 degrees outside and UV 9. I have a lot of sunscreen on. I would become a shrimp otherwise. Okay, I'm back to the room now, and little update, I'm not a shrimp. I survived. I've been preparing now for a while, and today, in literally less than an hour, I will be facing FIDE Master Gabriel Voitino. I'm so sorry about my pronunciation. He's from Romania. He's rated 2150 approximately. So he's been having a pretty good tournament. He's basically been doing the results he should do, and he's been performing like a 2180. I have the white pieces today, and he actually plays a few different things. I could find like 750 games, so he's played chess a lot. So we will see a little bit how it goes. I'm nervous because if I win today, I'll be doing like one of the best tournaments like ever. If I win today, it would be absolutely insane. We will see how it goes. I'm happy with the draw as well, but obviously I really want to win. All right, I will see you all at the playing hole. I'm gonna be going very soon as the game is starting super duper duper soon. Wish me luck. I just finished my game and I'm now in the room, and after the game I actually ended up analyzing the whole thing with my opponent, which was actually really instructive. I typically only look at how the game was with an engine, but it was actually really cool to talk about the game with my opponent. So I'm really excited to show it to you. It went d4, I had the white pieces, and my opponent went d5. I was kind of expecting this. I thought he was either gonna play this or the Grunfeld. So I had prepared both a little bit, but because the game started so much earlier today, there was a lot less time to prepare. So I went e3, knight f6, and I had prepared all of this, and I thought he might go bishop f5, and now I played an interesting move. And I call it interesting in this intonation. No, oh guys, your brain becomes fried from playing chess. It's actually crazy. Well, whatever. So here I played f3, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just maybe a little bit dubious, but I've seen a lot of super grandmasters play this. Like I was seeing a lot of 2700s playing this when I was analyzing. So it's really not like horrible. It's very playable. So f3, and you went e6 and g4. And this is like, I love this kind of play. It's very forward, and I really like gaining a lot of space. So bishop g6 and h4, and I could tell that my opponent was kind of shocked by all of these moves. So pretty quickly he played h5. I was expecting him to go h6. I wasn't really expecting h5. So actually I hadn't looked so much at h5. I'd only looked at h6 mostly. So g5, knight d7. And now in this position, I should have gone knight e2, and after bishop here, I should have done something like bishop h3. This is what my plan should have been. Like this is, and then I should just have prepared e4, and this is what my plan should have been. But the thing was that I am very stubborn, and I had seen this really cool idea with the h6 line instead of h5. And so I wanted to do the same thing, but it just doesn't work. So I went knight h3, and after bishop d6, I need to go f4 here, but I wanted to go knight f4 because this is what I had seen in the other line. But this just became a really bad pawn structure for me, and yeah, this is really not the way you want to start a game with the white pieces. So I realized pretty quickly that my opening had turned out pretty badly, and I wasn't so happy about this. So takes, knight b6, bishop b3. I couldn't go over here because then my pawn would be hanging. So bishop b3, and now knight d5. And now my pawn, this pawn is becoming very weak. This pawn is pretty weak because I went castles, which I think I have to go castles. And this pawn is really weak. So my pawn structure is absolute garbage. I mean, if you literally would pull up like an example of the worst pawn structure you could have, this could be a great example of it. Double pawns, isolated pawns, everything you don't want to have is right here. But I thought it was okay because at least I had the bishop here. And like I said in another one of these videos, bishops are vicious, and I wanted to be a vicious bishop. So queen c7, this pawn was targeted, and now maybe I should have taken here. I was constantly contemplating taking and going bishop a4 check and just exchanging everything, but I would once again end up with this really bad pawn structure, and I just really did not know if that's what I wanted. So I ended up going for this really sneaky move, queen e2. And the idea of this is that if knight takes f4, I have this move, queen h2. I'm pinning the knight, and the only move that doesn't lose a piece is knight d5. But then after some takes and something like maybe, I don't know, bishop f4, actually I have a lot of counterplay here simply because of the fact that my bishops are so strong. This king hasn't castled and this knight is not out. So yeah, actually, this was quite an interesting move. So he ended up not taking, and he went castles. So here I decided that I wanted to take a little bit of control of the dark squares. So I ended up going queen e5, and now we kind of started pushing. Well, I tried to push back his queen, but I realized really quickly that my queen over here, you know, it may look really pretty, but like it's not doing anything. Like this queen is just not good placed, I realized. So I thought that it was fine, that I could just move my bishop, that I had time, but I quickly realized that he had this really pretty idea. Knight d7, threatening my queen moves, and now look at this. Knight over here trying to get the knight up to f5, and if this knight gets up to f5, this knight is going to be targeting the pawn on h4, the pawn on d4. It's going to be targeting, you know, my queen. I mean, it's going to be targeting so many things, and it's just going to be the most, you know, terrible night ever. So I realized that this was a really critical moment in the game, and that if I took the wrong turn here, I could just lose the game on this spot. So I had to be really careful, and here I ended up spending like 20 minutes thinking, because I had to be really careful about what was going on. So at the end, I realized that probably my best choice is to trade queens and to enter an endgame where I have my two bishops being very active. So I realized that in this position where my pawn structure is so bad, the only thing that I can have is activity. And how do I get activity? Well, I get activity by opening up files for my rooks. And how do I do that? I do that by going knight c5. I'm right now threatening the knight, and the best move is by far to capture on c5, and now I'm able to capture back. Boom, now the d file is open. Now here I was expecting my opponent to go queen takes d6, and this could have turned pretty scary if he did that, but he went knight f5 instead, threatening my queen. Now I have to take because otherwise my bishop is hanging, so I took, and now the question was, where should I place my bishop? So I ended up going bishop a5, threatening the rook. Now this may not be the best square, maybe I should have gone here, but it's okay. So I went rook d4, threatening my pawn, and I went bishop c7 because I was not going to let go of my f4 pawn. I had already letting go of this h4 pawn, and I was not going to lose all my pawns on the king side. So he took my h4 pawn, and I quickly realized that I just need to get my rook in the game. I just need to get activity really quickly. And actually, I have compensation for this pawn right now. So rook takes d1, bishop takes d1, may save this pawn, but I don't have the time for it. I told myself, if I need to sacrifice 2 pawns, I will do so to get some activity. So here, I thought that my opponent was going to go knight takes f3, and, you know, the idea was that after this, and this, I have rook d7, and my rook is getting active. But instead he went for this move, king f8. What is the idea? That is to go king e8 and prevent my rook from coming in, and then maybe trade rooks at some point if my bishop leaves. So I once again realized that, okay, now I need to be careful. So I went king f2 because you can do whatever you want to me, but you're not getting my second pawn now. So king f2, king e8, and now the idea is that the moment the king goes here, he's letting go of this pawn. So I decided to go to e5 with my bishop, threatening this pawn. Knight f5, defending it, and now bishop c2, threatening the knight. And now the bishop pair starts doing its magic, because the bishop pair is magical. It really is. Yeah, it can do so many beautiful and powerful things. I mean, the bishop pair is so good. So I'm threatening now to capture and to take, and that should just be a dead draw. And at this point, I was happy with the draw because I had such a bad opening. So I was just trying to get, a draw, or to just get as good of a position as I could. So he ended up going knight e7, and I traded and took this pawn. And now finally, it was equal pawns again. So, well, okay, for just a second, I forgot. Okay, so now I took my f4 pawn, king g3. I was just trying to get my king active. And he went knight g6 to stop my king from entering and getting this pawn, and bishop f6 was played. Now I went here because I wanted to stop the rook from exchanging itself, because I thought that if it was the bishop versus knight endgame, I wasn't so sure how that was. So he went b6, and I went b4 to defend, and now he went knight e7. And here I didn't want this knight roaming around. So yeah, I actually just pretty quickly, also this knight on d5 would be so good. So I ended up pretty quickly just taking, and going here, threatening the pawn. And now was the moment where he did a slightly dubious move, a5. And when I say slightly dubious, I mean that it literally goes from being 0.00 to being plus 0.20, no, 12. Now it's 0.00. I mean, like, this game has been, from my opponent's point of view, very accurate so far. I've played pretty accurately, not the first 7 moves, but after that it's been pretty good. But I already had a bad position, right? But this move, it gave me a little bit of hope. So I was getting really low on time here. This was move 36, and I ended up just going a3, defending. But here, it would actually have been pretty interesting if I took here, because the only good move he has is to go b5. And the idea is now that if I take, this pawn is going to get pretty weak. So yeah, this would have been really, really, really interesting. And now if I go a3, well, then there's going to be takes, and then rook a4. And then we're going to play basically this pawn versus this one. But I got really scared about all that, so I just went a3 and defended. I kind of chickened out. And now rook b8, he took the open file, I took the pawn, and now I said, okay, great, now I have the same amount of pawns. So rook b3, and here I just went rook c7 check and started thinking, because now I had reached move 40 and I got an increment of 15 minutes. So I was in this position thinking that I might have something. I really wanted a draw, obviously, but I knew that I was going to be able to save a draw from this position, but I was trying to see if there was something more. So yeah, but anyways, after c6, he just went king g7 because he was a little bit scared of my g6. And then I went rook c8 because I realized that I want to get this pawn. I don't want to end up being a pawn down. And if I would right now not be careful, it might become very easy for me to be a pawn down. So I went rook c8, and he went h4 check. And you'll see the reason for it. It's because he wanted to take this f3 pawn. He wanted my pawns to be a little bit more scattered and lonely. You know, this pawn on f3 was protecting this one, but now my pawns are all alone and all lonely. So I went here rook a8. I'm threatening this pawn. If he takes, then I'm going to make a queen. So his only move pretty much is to go rook c3. And then I captured. And now, one may say, okay, Anna, this is a dead draw. But let me tell you, this guy just didn't stop fighting. He was a fighter, a chess fighter. He didn't actually start fighting me, but on the chessboard. So here I'm slightly worse because my opponent has 2 passed pawns, and my pawns are a little bit, further away from each other and a little bit more scattered. So I'm slightly worse here, but this is, a complete draw. Even if I would lose one of these pawns, it should be a draw. So a4, king g6, and king g4, and then it's just that I'm being pushed back. And he's going to kind of try to maneuver his king around. So king g4, king d3, and so I was just kind of going back and forth. Really important for me, obviously, to not go up because there's check. So king here, rook here, and then pawn push. And his whole idea is to get the king up to f4 to start pushing this pawn. That's everything he wants to do. He just wants to start pushing this pawn. So I went rook b7. I went rook b7 because I realized that I had to sacrifice a pawn. But this is a complete draw. He actually ended up not taking the pawn. Well, I'll show you. He went rook a2 check, king over here, rook a3 check, and then he went king here. He could have taken this pawn and this one, but the endgame, I'm just going to show you. Here, this endgame, it's just the draw. Though I have to be slightly careful. But after king e4, this is just the draw. And there's, you can take a moment to like try to analyze it, but this is just the draw. So I went king d3. And if I could avoid being a pawn down, I felt like that would be better, right? King e4, and now I captured on f7, he captured on a5, and I started pushing my g pawn. So now I wasn't really sure, where the magic was, because I thought that this was just a dead draw. But still, there was still, stuff in this position. So rook a7, he went rook g6, I started going back and forth and pulling my king up. So yeah, we did a few back and forth moves. I ended up in this position really wanting to get the pawn and not end up being a pawn down. So I went king e4. The idea is that if takes, I'll just trade everything and take here, and it'll be king versus king. So I went rook g4 check. Now king d5, he looked very surprised when I did this. Rook d4 check, I moved my king, but the idea here was that whenever the rook came back to stop the promotion, I have this move rook d7, which is really pretty. If he takes the rook, I'm going to make it queen. He can't do it. And after he moves the rook, I have now eliminated the rook from this file, which is the file that was stopping that was making sure that my king couldn't move. So I moved my king, threatening now to promote, and then, or just basically stopping this pawn from pushing. And after he went e4, I promoted to queen, took, and now king takes e4. And in this position, my opponent offered a draw. Yeah, it was really fun playing against him, and I'm happy with the draw. I am right now at this moment in time gaining 40 points of rating in this tournament, which is insane. Wish me and my dad good luck for tomorrow. Tomorrow is gonna be a big day. Gotta get lots of sleep. Okay, people, good night. See you tomorrow.